So Benito Mussolini defines fascism as the marriage of corporation and state. And why is this important? Because the state right now is owned by the Democrats. They control the executive branch, they control the legislative branch. They're attempting to control the judicial branch by threatening to pack the Supreme Court. And in order to do so, they need help from the corporations. They need to use soft power. They need to use powers that the government does not have, authority that we the people, did not grant the federal government. So they're offloading some of their agenda to these private organizations who then circumvent the Constitution to attack your rights. The federal government can't come out and squash your freedom of speech. They can't disallow you from speaking. But if they work hand in hand with, I don't know, say Facebook or YouTube or Google or the mainstream media to essentially digitally assassinate you for having a different opinion, well, the government's not doing that. That's a private organization, but my private business, right? The other day, I was at a bakery picking up some baked goods, and the owner happened to have been an attorney. At one point, he burned out and decided to open a bakery. And he asked me what kind of law I wanted to basically work in. And I told him constitutional law, focusing in on the Fourth Amendment. And he kind of looked at me, squinted, and he said, "That's awfully specific." And I said, "Well, because the government is doing disgusting things at the moment." A couple weeks ago, I discussed how the Biden administration wants to employ private investigators, people outside of the government, because they can spy on you without a warrant. So the government is essentially merging with private corporations to circumvent your constitutional rights in order to get rid of the enemy. And that is extremely concerning. But before we get started today, guys, how about you smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below. It helps with the algorithm. The Daily Mail, liberal media's dramatic flip-flop. Let me just mute the computer. A year after left-wing news trashed theory that COVID originated from a Wuhan lab, when Trump supported this suggestion, outlets now throw their support behind the idea. The first reported fatality from COVID-19 was in Wuhan, China on January 11th, 2020, and I don't buy that. I'm fairly certain that I had COVID in December of 2019. And I'm making this informed decision, this informed declaration, because A, there was no COVID test in December 2019. But when I had COVID again in December 2020, I had one of the key symptoms a second time around. So in December 2020, when I had COVID, the only symptom I had was a loss of sense of smell and taste. I stuck my wife, I was making coffee. I brew a batch cold brew once a week. And my wife said, "That smells really strong today." And I said, "What smells really strong?" And she said, "The coffee." And I said, "Huh?" And I stuck my nose in the coffee grinds. And guess what? I walked straight to my office because I knew what was going on, because I had experienced it before. So, rewind to 2019. We flew to Mexico on vacation, and I had a fever of 103. I was couch locked for about 3 or 4 days. No sense of smell, no sense of taste. I didn't eat for 3 days because the texture of the food wasn't that appealing to me. And that's why I believe I had COVID in 2019. I went to a university with international students, so there's definitely a possibility that somehow there was an outbreak. Somehow I had gotten sick, but it just wasn't on the radar yet. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. By January 21st, the virus was in the US. A week later, the Washington Times speculated about a lab leak. The suggestion, picked up by Trump and embraced by China hawks, was ridiculed by the left-wing media. A year later, a growing acceptance of the possibility of a lab leak has formed, ignoring past skepticism. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top public health official, now says that he believes it is possible. The World Health Organization set a team to investigate earlier this year, but were not given full access to China's laboratories. from the Washington Post today, May 25th. Timeline: how the Wuhan lab leak theory suddenly became credible. Glenn Greenwald: it's stunning how quickly in mainstream sectors this traveled from insane, unhinged conspiracy theory that must be censored from the internet as harmful disinformation to serious and plausible possibility for which rational evidence exists. Let's learn lessons from this. From Don Jr.: it didn't suddenly become credible. It was always credible. It literally always made the most sense. I understand the desired narrative media always wanted, but didn't anyone think the most likely scenario was the virus magically originated feet from the lab that worked with it? And basically, right now, we're going to go take a trip down memory lane. Trump contradicts U.S. intel community by claiming he's seen evidence coronavirus originated in a Chinese lab. That was from May 1st, 2020. Anthony Fauci crushed Donald Trump's theory on the origins of the coronavirus. That was May 5th, 2020. Weird Science: how a shoddy Bannon-backed paper on coronavirus origins made its way to an audience of millions. October 21st, 2020. Did coronavirus leak from a research lab in Wuhan? Startling new theory is no longer being discounted amid claims staff got infected after being sprayed with blood. This is from April 2020. So they went back in time. It would be a lot better if the Daily Mail essentially did this chronologically. That way we can see the narrative form. April 25th, 2021, worrying new clues about the origins of COVID. How scientists at Wuhan lab helped Chinese army and secret project to find animal viruses, writes Ian Burrell. Scientists at Wuhan lab were on massive project investigating animal viruses. Documents obtained by the Mail on Sunday have revealed a nationwide scheme. It was being directed by leading state bodies, which was launched 9 years ago. Its aim was to find new viruses and detect dark matter of biology involved in spreading disease alongside military officials, despite denials of any such links. Former CDC director believes virus came from lab in China. Former CDC director Robert Redfield sits down with CNN's Dr. Sanjay Gupta to discuss the pandemic and shares his opinion about the origin of the COVID-19 virus. May 24, 2021, new information on Wuhan researchers' illness, further debate on pandemic origins. Jumping back in time to 2020, Senator Tom Cotton repeats fringe theory of coronavirus origins. Scientists have dismissed suggestions that the Chinese government was behind the outbreak, but it's the kind of tale that gains traction among those who see China as a threat. So remember, we need to stop anti-Asian hate. Trump officials are said to press spies to link virus in Wuhan labs. Some analysts are worried that the pressure from senior officials could distort assessments about the coronavirus and be used as a weapon in an escalating battle with China. How I learned to stop worrying and love the lab leak theory. So this is from May 17th. In early spring 2020, I reported an article for the New York Times on which I put the tentative headline, "New coronavirus is clearly not a lab leak, scientists say." It never ran for two reasons. Well, now it's a good thing that it didn't run, because that would have been a fake story. That would have been fake news. Another group of scientists calls for further inquiry into origins of the coronavirus. Was the new coronavirus accidentally released from a Wuhan lab? It's doubtful. That is from May 1st, 2020. Opinion: how did the pandemic begin? It's time for a new World Health Organization investigation. This is from April 30th, 2021. The vexing lab leak theory on China and the coronavirus. May 24th, 2021. A toxic infodemic, the viral spread of COVID-19 conspiracy theories. That was from April 7th, 2020. Wuhan researchers were hospitalized with COVID-19 symptoms pre-pandemic reports. The Wall Street Journal cited intelligence that 3 researchers at China's Wuhan Institute of Virology had to be hospitalized in November 2019. This is from May 24, 2021. And I'm also going to say this. There are articles out there that they found traces of COVID-19 in the sewer pipes of Italy. I will just drop that there. You can do some research, and I'm pretty sure they found it in November. And not a lot of people know this, but there is a human trafficking issue with people from China going to Italy because they want the cheap labor of Chinese people, but they don't want clothes made in China. So, in order to hit a certain price point, they essentially human traffic Chinese individuals from China to Italy. That way, they can have garments that say made in Italy, but still have that cheap price because essentially you're using slave labor. And they're forced to work in disgusting conditions until they can afford to fly back to China. It's essentially indentured servitude. It's disgusting. But that's why a lot of people think, or there's the theory, that Italy was hit so hard because essentially you were importing the virus directly from China into Italy, and Italians live on top of one another. You have 3 or 4 generations of people living in the same house. So guess what? Italy was going to get basically rammed by that COVID train. Virus researchers cast doubt on theory of coronavirus lab accident. That is from April 23rd, 2020. And that was all the headlines. But Project Veritas has proved that social media is now working in conjunction with the state. Whistleblowers leaked internal docs detail new Facebook effort to secretly censor vaccine concerns on a global scale. Facebook has responded. We proactively announced this policy on our company blog and also updated our help center with this information, Facebook company spokesperson. 2 Facebook insiders have come forward with internal company documents detailing a plan to curb vaccine hesitancy on a global scale. The stated goal of this feature is to drastically reduce user exposure to vaccine hesitancy comments. Another aim of the program is to force a decrease in other engagement of vaccine hesitancy comments, including create likes, reports, and replies. It was such a shocking revelation that it moved not just one, but 2 whistleblowers to come forward to Project Veritas so the public could be made aware of this plan to stifle free speech. One Facebook whistleblower said the company uses a tier system to determine how a comment should be censored or buried. Comments that include shocking stories describing potentially or actually true events or facts that can raise safety concerns are demoted. True events or facts that raise concern about COVID vaccinations are fair game to be demoted and hidden according to our source, despite their authenticity or capacity to contribute to the public good. I have to do something, one of the insiders said. Project Veritas reached out to a top Facebook spokesperson about these documents and received only a brief and broad statement in reply that failed to address our biggest questions regarding transparency. They're trying to control this content before it even makes it onto your page, before you even see it, the other Facebook insider said. If I lose my job, it's like, what do I do? But that's less of a concern to me. 2 Facebook insiders have come forward to Project Veritas with leaked internal documents showing the big tech giants' plan to police vaccine hesitancy through surreptitious comment demotion. And essentially, this is kind of double down, but there's a chart right here at the beginning that I really want to go over, and it explains it very well. The company has set up a tier system to rank comments on various scales based on how much the statement questions or cautions against COVID-19 vaccination. Tier 2, for instance, represents indirect discouragement of getting vaccinated, and according to Project Veritas sources, user comments such as these would be heavily suppressed, so it'd be buried in the feed. It doesn't matter if the comments are true, factual, or represent reality. The comment is demoted, buried, and hidden from view of the public if it clashes with the system. So, if the Democrats, if the party, if the state says this goes against our narrative that we're trying to push, Facebook then suppresses it. Sounds like fascism. It doesn't match the narrative. One insider explained the narrative being get the vaccine is good for you. Everyone should get it. And if you don't, you will be singled out. One of the insiders, a data center technician, leaked multiple internal documents detailing an algorithm test being run on 1.5% of Facebook and Instagram's nearly 3.8 users, or 3.8 billion users worldwide. The goal? To drastically reduce user exposure to vaccine hesitancy in comments. They're trying to control this content before it even makes it onto your page, before you even see it. Let's see. Here it is right here. The company instituted tiers to describe the tone of certain posts, with some being categorized as sensational or alarmist or criticizing choice. The responses range from outright removal to comment demotions. Policy tier violating COVID vaccine MNH and WDH RFH remove at scale. Violating explicit vaccine discouragement VH sole purpose entities remove on escalation. B2V reduce. Sensational alarmists criticizing choice, indirect discouragement, shocking stories promoting alternatives. Everything from inform only tier plus non-rec inclusive of search, comments, and discovery surfaces. So it's not recommendation through search or comments or discovery search surfaces and demotions through not on direct, indirect discouragement content, BTGs, if as needed. It's bananas. So we're going to suppress it just because it's sensational. I wonder if they did that with stories about Trump. Well, of course not, because they are one with the Democrats. They are one with the state. So they essentially did whatever the Democrats told them to do. So every little hit piece that turned out to be false about Donald Trump, like, I don't know, Russian bounties and suckers and losers and all this stuff that ended up being false, were still being spread by the news. Oh, his taxes, paying $750 in taxes. Well, that's a fake news story, but Twitter and Facebook allowed those hacked materials to be spread. But they didn't actually allow non-hacked materials from Hunter Biden's laptop to be spread just weeks before an election in which 12% of Democrats who voted for Joe Biden said that they wouldn't have voted for Joe Biden because it appears the appearance of corruption, the appearance of pay to play. B2V inform only, FKA tiers 3-4. Personal objection, skepticism, neutral discussion, debate. Inform on all COVID vaccine content, plus test more specific labels on top of that. Reshare friction. So essentially, they'll say, those little banners that say the COVID vaccine has been proved to be 100% effective and you need to do whatever, those little things on the bottom that says, that you should get it, or it has been discussed that the origins of COVID has not come from a lab. All these things that were going on Facebook for the past year, well, Facebook is a part of that. They're the ones that are throwing things on the bottom. So they are making editorial decisions. It's no longer a public platform. And so, what are we supposed to do with this information? Well, what we need to be doing is understanding the world in which we live. We're not living in the United States of America as it was founded. We are now living in some weird, I don't want to call it the fascistic states of America. I say it in jest, but you definitely have a party in control, which is manipulating the citizens by merging with big tech, by merging with the media, by manipulating, by essentially running a 1-year PSYOP campaign, just working people up into a frenzy. And both sides of the aisle, mind you. You have one group of people, the Democrats, who believe 99% of what the media tells them, even if one day the media tells them to do X, and then the next day they don't even acknowledge that they once told them to do X. But then but on that next day say X is the worst thing in the world that you could ever do, so don't do X. So the Democrats won't even question the fact that they're now being told not to do what they were just told to do a day ago. So you have the Democrats, and then you have the Republicans who just don't trust anything that they're told, because unlike the abused spouse who just goes, oh, that's just Jim. That's how Jim gets when he drinks too much beer. They just go, no, I am no longer going to deal with this abuse. Everything you tell me, I'm going to spend hours debunking. I'm going to spend hours doing my own research to ensure whether you're telling me another lie because you have only proven yourself incompetent at this point, or that you maybe this one time out of 100, you could be true. So I'm going to start from a place of distrust. That's why Republicans trust the mainstream media at a rate of like 15%, because they just don't trust anything that they're told anymore. So then they're told that they don't trust the science. Well, how can you trust something that is not science. Because it's literally not science at this point. Science is, I have a hypothesis and I will conduct a test to see if that hypothesis can be confirmed or not confirmed. I believe that if I have a spoonful of water and I light my lighter underneath it, eventually that water will boil because heat. And once water reaches 212 degrees, it'll start to boil. And I'll test that hypothesis, and it's either confirmed or not confirmed. But right now, science is some weird gospel. If you don't trust the science, if you don't worship at the feet of Dr. Fauci, then you're a science denier, you're a heretic. What are you? I don't understand what's going on with this fetishization of science, the fetishization of Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci is not a God scientist, lowercase g. He's hardly even a scientist. He is a bureaucrat. If he was truly competent at his job, and I'm going to leave you with this. If Dr. Fauci was truly a competent scientist, he wouldn't be working for the government for longer than I've been alive. He would, I don't know, take that head position at the NIH, work there for a few years, and then go lobby for Moderna or Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson or AstraZeneca or any one of these pharmaceutical companies because they would love to have the former head epidemiologist of the United States of America be a part of their lobbying efforts to get more money from the government. But he is not good at his job. The only thing he's good at doing is suckling at the teat of government. And apparently watching CNN, because whatever CNN says, Dr. Fauci 2 days later says the same thing. So that's going to be it for now, friends. How about you smash that like button, or don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, or leave a comment down below. Until next time, have a good one.